Joining me now from the House Energy and Commerce Committee, Congressman Buddy Carter. Congressman, it's great to have you here. And when you and your colleagues come back for the week, obviously this is going to be one of the things that's going to be on the table. Do the Democrats have any chance of forcing the hand with President Trump?
They don't have any chance. They should know better. They should have learned their lesson by now that they're not going to be able to force his hand. We're going to get the job done. Look, our main focus right now is to get the Department of Homeland Security funded, and we're going to do that. It may be a reconciliation bill. That remains to be seen, but we are determined to get this done. And under the leadership of Mike Johnson and President Trump and in the Senate, we're going to come together, and we're all going to get this done.
What is your priority when you return?
Our priority is going to be to make sure that we're supporting President Trump and what he's doing in Iran and the conflict in Iran. I applaud him for the ceasefire. Let's face it, no one except for Donald J. Trump could have got us to the point that we're at right now. And we need to give this ceasefire a chance. We need to make sure that we're helping the president every way we can. But we've got to get the Department of Homeland Security funded, and that is one of our biggest priorities right now.
How do you think that that's going to play out? I had Congressman Michael Rulli on Mornings with Maria Friday morning, and he told me that basically he believes there's going to be two reconciliation bills, one in the spring, one in the fall.
That could be the case. It remains to be seen what exactly the play call is going to be, but we've got options, and that's important, and we'll use those options. Look, reconciliation is not an easy process. We made it look easy when we did the Working Families Tax Cut Act because we were determined to do it, but it is not an easy process, but we will do it, and we will get it done. We are determined, and we're going to make sure that Department of Homeland Security is funded. Look, the number one responsibility of the federal government is to protect our homeland, protect our citizens. We can only do that with a strong defense, and the Department of Homeland Security is part of that defense.
And as far as these talks in Islamabad, what are your expectations here?
Well, look, I remain optimistic, and as I said before, only Donald Trump could have gotten us to the point we're at right now. I hope Iran will negotiate in good faith. I pray they will.
Another issue for Washington right now is trust among American taxpayers. I want you to look at these new Fox polls. It shows a record 70% now believe that taxes that they're paying are too high. That's an 11% rise from just a year ago. Voters overwhelmingly believe the majority of government spending is wasteful. Now we're learning Vice President Vance's new anti-fraud task force has flagged more than $6 billion in potentially fraudulent government contracts. What do you say to the American people who are tired of being an ATM to fraudsters?
Well, I don't blame them. They should be frustrated. I'm frustrated. As a member of the Budget Committee, I can tell you waste, fraud, and abuse is something that we are determined to rid this country of. Whenever you get a bloated bureaucracy like we have, you're going to have this. But we've got to have help, too. We've got to have help at the state level. You know, I'm telling you, people are tired of this. They're tired of seeing what happened in Minnesota. I served with Tim Walsh, but I will tell you, Tim Walsh needs to be in handcuffs, and he needs to go to jail for what happened in Minnesota. And we need to hold some of these state leaders responsible for what they're doing. What they're finding now in California with the hospices, let me assure you, I was in that business. I was a provider for hospice, and there's a special place in hell for people who are frauding hospice.
Yeah, no, it's Minnesota, it is California, and possibly many other states, Congressman, as you know. Let's talk about America's economic map. It's being redrawn because of taxes in this nation. There's a new boom build across the Southeast that's bringing in people and jobs and $9 trillion in wealth. But Americans are fleeing to low-tax, business-friendly states. And some big blue cities are trying a very different strategy, paying people to move back. Detroit's now offering cash incentives up to $15,000 to try and get people to come back to their city. What do you make of this? Is this a new trend, do you think, we're going to see from these blue cities to try and get residents to return?
Well, they can try, but they're not going to succeed. I don't think that's going to work. Look, it's no coincidence that the area that you're talking about where the boom is taking place is under Republican leadership, pro-worker, pro-business. This is where businesses want to locate. Just this past week, we had Yamaha announce that they were moving their headquarters from California to Georgia. Georgia, for 12 years in a row, has been the #1 state in which to do business. That is the reason for that, and the reason is because of our conservative Republican leadership that has created a fertile environment for businesses to succeed, for business to invest, and for businesses to grow.
Now, as far as, what we're seeing across the country, I mean, we're looking at $39 trillion in debt right now. And, this is one of the things, of the reasons why DOGE, was one of the first things that President Trump did when he returned to office. How concerned are you right now about the federal debt? Because we're hearing from Americans, they're tired of being taxed to death, if you will. And now we've got this new $39 trillion number hanging over the nation's head.
And it is hanging over our head, and this is intergenerational theft. We cannot do this to our children, to our grandchildren. We've got to address that. This is why in the Budget Committee a couple of weeks ago we had a hearing where we're trying to get debt down to 3% of GDP. If we can get it down to that, then we can start chipping away at it, and we can get this under control. But we've got to do that first. How do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. That's what we're trying to do. Take a bite at a time, and let's get this down. This didn't happen overnight. We're not going to be able to relieve it overnight. But as I said earlier, the #1 responsibility of the federal government is to protect our homeland and our citizens, and we can only do that through a strong defense. Right now, we're paying more in interest on our debt than we are in defense. We can't sustain that.
Well, certainly there is going to be a lot of things to work on when Congress returns to Washington. Congressman Buddy Carter, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.